Real Estate Rewired.
Welcome to Real Estate Rewired, AI with a Heart with Gus Wade. And today I couldn't be more excited than to have our guest, John Baptiste. Most brokers learn by accident. A Zillow ad here, a farming postcard there, whatever their last coach told them to do in 2019. My guest today learned on purpose. Before he ever sold a house, he was building brands at Procter & Gamble and Host Communications, the kind of work where you can't be vague about who you're talking to or why. Then he took that discipline into real estate, and he now runs local realty agency mid-cities in the DFW market. About 10 agents, 2 clear lanes, apartment locating, and new construction. And an AI stack he's actively building inside his brokerage rather than reading about it on LinkedIn. What makes this conversation exciting for me is most brokers talk about what they do. John thinks like a strategist about who he's doing it for. And it's the gap between the brokers who scale and the ones who spin their wheels. So I'm really looking forward to picking your brain today, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Gus. I really appreciate you having me on. And
So,
I gotta say that intro. I gotta use that again.
okay, well, here's the magic of AI. You ready, John? And we'll start with this. I take your email, I put it in my Claude, and I say, who is John? What's he done? And write me an intro to the show. And this is what it comes up with.
There we go. That's one of the beauties of AI, right?
Absolutely. But where I'd like to start, John, is because most folks at 8 years old aren't like, hey, I want to be a real estate broker when I grow up, right? So I always like to start, what about you as a kid? Like the things that you love to do, the things that you were good at, the things that you were interested in, still apply to what you're doing right now.
You know, that's when I think about that, I would just say my curiosity as a kid. I was really, and I joke with my daughter who's about to go to college because she wants to be an aerospace engineer. And I tell her, I should have done that because I was very curious about chemistry, and my father was really hands-on with stuff, master mechanic, but that wasn't me, right? But I would take things apart. I always was taking things apart. I used to make a lot of model cars and planes and things like that. And I was just really curious about things. And today, with AI and how rapidly things change, that curiosity still, I'm always looking to see what I can learn.
I love that because I'm curious as to your thought about this arc, because recently this is the way I've been thinking about it, right? Listen, there are people who, when they were little kids, were thinking about brain surgery, or they were thinking about becoming an astronaut, or they were thinking about how dinosaurs, or they were obsessed with how to pull a little toy car and put it back together. Like, we're born with these innate interests that we really can't control, right? They're in us. But then that gets filtered through, hey, you got to go to school and you got to make a living and you got to make money. So all of a sudden we sort of get pulled into maybe doing things that we have to do, but don't really line up with our original authentic self. I'll stop there for a second. What do you think about that thought?
I mean, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, I don't want to talk about teachers and educators because I know a lot of my friends are doing that now. But I say sometimes they can be dream killers for kids.
Well, but it's interesting. I will talk about the source code later, but I did a little deep dive into education, and really the way we are currently educating was designed by the British Empire to train clerks to run their empire. Show up when the bell rings, sit still, learn these things because these are the things we need to run our empire. And boy, talk about a broken model.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, even, you know, having kids that are still in school and listening to the things that they talk about that they're doing and knowing that the power of AI and to hear them talk about, well, they don't really want us to use it. And I get learning some of the fundamentals, but at the same time, we're rapidly going into a new world where, I mean, every major business is pushing AI. And if we don't get the kids out there experimenting with it and learning how to use it, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of people left behind.
Well, and here's what I find interesting about it, John, and I go back to that original thing. Could you imagine a kid who is interested in dinosaurs or space exploration or surgery utilizing AI as a tutor to basically say, "Hey, I'm really interested in this. Could you tell me more about it? Like, when did surgery start? When was the first time somebody cut somebody open and how come it didn't hurt?" And all of a sudden, they're being fed what they love and fired up. And the difference in what that would create in our world if that were the model.
No, that should be the model, in
Mhm.
reality, because even if we think back even prior to, the masses talking about AI, YouTube in itself can say you want to be that surgeon or you want to do something that was technical. You had people on YouTube telling you how to do things, right? So you could actually go out there and start at an early age and say, okay, let me learn about some of this stuff. Because now you might save yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars from going to college and calling your parents up as a junior and say, hey, I want to change my major because this isn't it, right?
Well, here's the interesting thing though, John, and I don't know how this is gonna flesh out because anybody who's in this space realizes we just have no idea. But what I do know is the old model with YouTube was, "I need to get your attention and keep you here because this is how we're gonna make dollars."
Right. Correct.
So, yes, you could go on and do that, but it was always gonna be in there trying to say, "Hey, what about this?" Or, "Oh, look at this celebrity," or, "Look at this pretty girl." Like, let's get you down a different rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. They were going to take you there.
AI isn't designed that,
No.
right? So it's really an interesting thing to think about, and I don't even know if they've really figured out how to quote unquote monetize it yet. Right? Like they haven't quite like these LLM
Not
models
yet.
that are right, not yet.
Not yet.
I do know one of the things they're going after is wages, right? Because there's $11 trillion in wages in this country. We saw when that guy who invented the Claude coding, and all of a sudden he goes, "I haven't coded in 4 months, and I'm one of the best coders in the world." And they went, "Wow, what other jobs can we quote unquote eliminate so that when it's owned by private equity and we eliminate 10% of the workforce, our stock's going to go up 15%." Right? Like that seems to be part of what's going on in that world.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're in New York City. My first job was, and you may remember this company, might not, but it was with a mutual fund company on 95 Wall Street. I used to, first investors, I used to go up to Wall Street and talk to those guys. I mean,
We must
they're
have
going to
well, I'm a
find a
little old.
way.
I know it's interesting. They'll find a way. You're absolutely right. I had one of my first jobs was I had a Haagen-Dazs ice cream cart right outside the stock exchange.
Okay.
It was the first Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar, and these guys. This was in the early '80s, man. These guys would come out fired up from whatever they were on, and whether it was adrenaline from winning a deal or other substances in the '80s. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
we saw the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you about that then. So you got in, you go to work for P&G. Was that right out of college, or what was the genesis of that?
Well, with the P&G thing is we were basically consultants with P&G.
Got it.
So I was at Host Communications and we were put together these different marketing programs. Now, my former boss, he came from P&G as a brand manager. They brought him in, of course, to get more business for us. So that was when I moved to Texas. So that was like in 2000. So by that point, because I graduated, yeah, it's about maybe 10 years after college.
And what did you love about that gig? Or what did you know what I mean? Like, what are some of the things you really take away from either the people or the philosophies? Like, what did you learn about when you were there?
Well, one of the things that it just made you think about not so much, because we can all come up with these fancy marketing ideas, right? But when I remember distinctly going to San Antonio to a focus group, and we're sitting behind a mirror, and you got the people out there, and I'm thinking to myself, are they just telling us what we want to hear? Because they know we're there. I mean, they're getting paid for this, right? Versus, are they really giving us real opinions? And as you went through and worked with different brand managers, I learned from some of the best ones that it's not so much about the idea or thoughts that they want to put out there, but what is it that the people really want? And sometimes you got to take your ego out of it. You can't just think, oh, I've got this great plan and everybody's going to do it. And I heard a brand manager ask another brand manager, like, hey, is this something that you would do? And the guy was like, no. He's like, well, what makes you think the masses are going to adopt it? I mean, we're not that dissimilar as people. We all
Hmm.
kind of want the same things: food, safety, security, that type of thing. You know, so that was one of the real things that I picked up, was to step back and ask myself, like, if I'm putting together something marketing wise, is this something that I'm just coming up with, or is this something that would really capture my attention as well?
Interesting. And how long were you in that space, John?
About 10 years.
And then you transitioned from there to real estate at that point?
No, actually, there was another 10-year gap in between that.
Let's hear about it, John.
So, in that space of the marketing world, my former boss, well, not the P&G boss, because we all kind of
Right.
broke off from Host. Host kind of disintegrated. It's different. We're working with all the major sports franchises. Well, not franchises, but leagues: NFL,
Hmm.
NBA. And those all started to get taken away by the people that were running it. So we kind of broke off. I went with my first boss, and then my good friend who actually got me the job, she broke off and started her company and was like, hey, I need, you want to come help me? So I went with her. Now, she had name recognition in the sports world because her father had been an NBA coach, still is in the NBA coaching world, and her brother's now a head coach for one of the playoff teams. So we continued on the marketing vein, running events, but we were kind of heavy with State Farm, McDonald's, focusing on the black college sports world. So I did that for about 10 years. But in between that, we used to get a lot of calls because of who her dad was. And the name of the company had sports management in it. So they assumed we were basketball agents. So I would get these emails from people, hey, and then I went to her dad one time and I was like, hey, keep getting these emails about asking for players. And then I quote, he said, well, young fella, why don't you try it? And he mentioned one of the top NBA agents, and he was like, none of them ever get started in the business because they planned it. It just happened. So from that point, I started collecting the information I was getting, started meeting some players, started to transition into a sports agent. And then another good friend from college, he was already a sports agent. He had recently signed number one NBA draft pick, and we were both in Texas. We didn't know we were in Texas. I just read it it's called Sports Business Journal. There was an article about him. So I started just working it. Uh, and I was doing primarily women in the international market. And his wife had just finished, she retired from playing. He knew I was here. He reached out and was like, hey, my wife is like, why don't you guys work with, or why doesn't he work with the WNBA? And he saw that I was doing it. He said, hey, I've got the budget. Why don't you come on and we can do that? So I did that with him for a while, and we had some success. We signed another um, WNBA number one draft pick. So we were only one of two NBA agencies who ever had a number one NBA and WNBA draft pick. So that was a pretty interesting world.
I'll bet that was an interesting world. It's always interesting to me too. There's a great book called Fluke, Fluke, and it just talks about the randomness of life,
Yeah.
right? And so, I was recently interviewing someone in a different space where he was a chiropractor and he worked on super high-end athletes, like world-class athletes. But a local TV station did a report on him working on this famous athlete. And the next thing you know, they got 2,000 phone calls from people. But these were all really sick people. These were not world class athletes. These are people who had all kinds of underlying conditions. And because of that, he developed a whole new strategy for dealing with that. But his current owner in his current chiropractic office was like, I don't want any part of that. I just want to crack backs. And so, had that news program not run, that was like the pivot point that got him into a whole different business. And as I'm thinking about you, John, the fact that you were working with someone who was connected to an NBA coach with name recognition, like all of that, you had no control over that. That's just how it sort of played out. But you were able to see an opportunity and take advantage of it. So how did the real estate opportunity appear to you, and how did you end up taking advantage of that?
My goodness. Now that story, I can blame all this on my wife.
Okay, there you go.
So, I was still in the sports business and she transitioned from corporate America to going full time. And she had some success early on, got busy and was like, hey, I need somebody to help me, open some of these doors and show these houses. She's like, you should get licensed. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, okay. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I started taking the classes online. It took me about a year because I wasn't, it
Right,
wasn't like,
motivated.
hey, what my plan?
Right, right.
So I got my license, but her plan, of course, was like I said, she must have gone to one of the classes at the big brokerage she was at that said, hey, you need leverage. You need somebody to open doors for you.
Right.
And that's what she thought I was going to be. But when I got my license, my first thought was build a brokerage. And she was like, that's not what I signed up for. It's like, well, too late now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that came to be.
Well, and how long ago was that?
Wow, that was, this is 26, about 8 years ago now.
Okay, got it. And then COVID hits.
COVID hit.
What happened then?
Well, I'll say that we didn't do as much as we should have during COVID. I mean, my wife was really didn't want anybody going outside. The kids were taking class on the computer and things like that. I would still go down to the office. There was a big group of maybe 6 of us that went down to our office every day. Everybody kind of stayed in our own office. We used to
Mm-hmm.
call it our own COVID bubble because no one ever got it at the time.
Right.
We did some business, but there were a lot of people doing a lot of business. And it's one of those situations you look back on and like, I probably should have did more business because it was there. But it is what it is. We made it through it. And, it was an interesting time to say the least.
So when it's interesting because most people are agents for a couple of years. Listen, most businesses start because of a resentment, right? Like I'm working for this guy, he's keeping my money. I'm going to go start my own thing. So that doesn't sound like it was your experience. Your experience was, I don't want to do the agent thing for someone else. Initially, I want to go right into the brokerage. That's an unusual place for people to start. But you had the experience. How long had your wife been in real estate by the time that sort of came about?
She was probably full time. She was probably 5 years then, but she had been licensed 5 years before, so about 10 years total. She was
Got it.
working part time because she was an engineer.
So you got to see what the quote unquote problems were with whatever agent she was working with. Was that like, in other words, what was the thought in your mind, John, that said, hey, just open a brokerage?
Well, because I have that entrepreneurial spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and I equate that to growing up in Connecticut. I
We're in
mean,
Connecticut.
Waterbury, Connecticut, the brass city.
I was born in Norwalk.
Okay,
All
yeah,
right, we're Connecticut boys. Look at this, the
that's
Nutmeg
right.
State. They got a good basketball program.
Absolutely. Still, I've got Connecticut gears to this day. I've been in Texas 26 years, but you'll still see me with a Yukon
That's
jacket
right.
on. So, and I grew up around a lot of different, like a lot of my father's friends had their own businesses. So I saw a lot of that early. So I always thought about owning my own business. When I got licensed, my real estate license, and we joined a brokerage, or I joined the brokerage, she was already there. One of the first things that I did was, went through all the training and everything else. But again, I still was not thinking I want to be this mega agent type of person. I started analyzing the teams. And then people that were on teams, I would talk to them about why they were on the team. And then I loved talking to the people that would drop off of a team. Like, so why'd you leave? What was going on? And they were all a case study. They just didn't know it.
Right, sure.
So
Market
I was laying
research.
the foundation for, if we're going to be here, I'm going to build a team. That was my first thought. I'm going to build a team first, but I'm going to build it based off of what the agents are looking for, based off of the feedback I'm getting about why they're leaving these teams or why they're staying.
Interesting. And why were people leaving?
Well, you know how humans can be, right? They get that commission check and then they start to tabulate in their mind, well, what have they done for me? Or what haven't they done for me? And that wasn't the main problem that I saw. The main problem was there was a lack of consistency from that broker. I don't know if it was a broker or just the system, but the team contracts, they varied. But there was an agent that actually, I don't know how she was allowed to even do this, but the team leader gave her a contract that says even after she left the team, she would have to pay her 20% of what she made in perpetuity. And I was just like, did you not even read this?
Right.
So, it was just a lot of bad deals that I saw. And I knew because of having an early sales background that if people look at that commission statement and then they can either look at it, like I said, and say, hey, they're getting a piece of this for nothing, or it's justified what they're getting. I'm giving them because they're giving me something.
Got it. So, and listen, I think it's like anything else, right? A guy who's great at baking bread, he thinks about opening a bakery. All he's thinking is I'm baking bread, and he's not looking at, well, wait a minute, I got commercial and I got employees and I got financing and I got marketing and I got to keep the place clean. And when the parking lot gets a crack in it, and I got insurance and I got people who aren't showing up, like doesn't look at all of that. So unfortunately, I think a lot of these real estate shows ruined it for people. They think, oh, I'm going to show 3 houses. They're going to take one. I'm going to make 60 grand. What a
Right.
great way to make a living.
Right.
You know, okay.
So far from
Does,
the truth.
doesn't quite work that way. So when you were breaking up, I guess where I'm going with this is you must have broken up the tasks that a real estate agent would need to do, right? You had to look across all of the different things that they did. Was that a structured process that you did in the beginning where you said, okay, here's what it looks like from marketing to sales to closing to transaction coordinator to post marketing to drip marketing to follow up? There's a whole slew of things that have to happen.
Right.
You map that out.
I mapped it out from first, it was the marketing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I saw having been in different industries. Like I had never, and I said this in a meeting once, everyone always talks about gross commission income. And I'm like, what are we talking about? No one talk. Gross doesn't matter. It's how much you keep, right? So they would talk about gross and how they were going to get business and referrals. And this came from the Procter and Gamble background of you got to have some type of system in place in order to keep getting business. And referrals is not a repeatable system. We just can't. We're not selling. I always say we're not selling shoes. I can't. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Gus, you like these shoes? And I call you next week and sell you some more shoes, right?
Right.
So I looked at it from the marketing of what they're missing, and then I began to look at the sales aspect of it because people always like to say, "Well, we're not salespeople." Yes, we are. I mean, we can't talk someone into buying a house, but we're selling ourselves, right? And I kind of transitioned my sales thought process from what I had learned from working with the guys from Wall Street, which was, as you know, hard charging, go for it type of thing, to more of a human behavior type of sales process
Mm-hmm.
of asking more questions, trying to find out really where the people are and where they are now, where they want to go, and how far are they from getting there, right? So I began to do things like set up and organize. What do you call it? Why did it just fall out my head?
So around
We
the
call it, that's
CRM,
when we're
around,
practicing. We're role
right.
playing. Like,
Okay, got it. Role playing.
yeah, because I knew that the agents were lacking in that because so many people came from different industries where they weren't in the sales. So
Mm-hmm.
they always had this negative connotation to it. And I also never been anywhere, and this comes from the basketball side, is how do you get good without practice?
Yep.
As Iverson would say, we're talking about practice, but he was already great, right? And no one wanted to practice. So
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have the marketing. You were being fed that referrals is the way to go. But then, so you get a client, how do you maintain that relationship, right? And then, but that's part of the practice too, is building that system up so that you can continue that relationship, but also to be able to have conversations with new people.
Got it. So you started looking at, and I had the guy I was talking to when you jumped in before, he had a great line. He said, he called it drift, that human beings are very creative. But and it was actually a guy who's what the heck was it called? Keyflow, where he's designing this AI system it's a transaction coordinator.
Okay.
In essence, and his big pain point was he went to a closing one day and he clicked the wrong box and he didn't get his check for 15,000 because he had left the box checked from the previous deal. But pointed out, it is true. You got a transaction going on. Maybe you got two transactions going on at the same moment. You're getting 1,000 emails. You're going to try to show a house this weekend, so you're trying to put a tour together. Meanwhile, your wife's calling you, my mom wants to know if we're coming. And all of a sudden, you can very quickly, things start to drift away. And I really thought it was a smart perspective. Like, machines are really good at not drifting. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, you train a machine it's like a dog. There's the ball. Just keep getting the ball. That's all you got to do. You don't have to build the roof. You don't have to cut your hair. Just keep getting the ball. And so I'm wondering, in your experience, what are the things that what goes first when they get busy?
When they get busy, the first thing that I see go and that we've been talking about is lead gen.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it hit me when we established our coaching program. I went through the coaching with the founder of the franchise system that we're in.
And what franchise are you with, John?
It's local realty agency.
Okay, got it. Got it.
So we just throw the city or the area after the local realty agency part.
Got it.
We're small. We got like 5 offices, but we're going to get bigger, I guess. And going through that coaching, I'm sure you probably heard they always talk about the roller coaster effect of real estate, right? You're high, you go flying down, and then you got to go back up, right? And she talked about it in coaching, and she said, you've got to put aside the people that you're working with in a sense that they're basically done business. So every little thing that an agent feels like that they need to be at the inspection, every time the phone rings and they're running to go somewhere to do something that maybe someone else can do, or is really not all that important, right? In terms of the deal, or even in terms of transaction coordination. My very first transaction, I spoke to a transaction coordinator and I was like, I'm sold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to pay you till after it closes. Like, I don't know why everyone doesn't use them. But by doing things like that, having a transaction coordinator, or if you want to go to different things with your client, you have to schedule them around your lead gen time. So if we always talk about a 9-11 time, right? And she was saying, if they want to have blue tape inspection, is between 9 and 11 the only time? Probably not, you know? So you schedule it after your lead gen time. So you're still trying to generate new business. And then you can try and eliminate that whole roller coaster effect, because once they close, they're done, right? They got what they want. They're done. No matter how good of the relationship most people think they have with their clients, after the house closes, they're done unless they need you for something.
And here's the thing, and here's the truth of the matter, right? And how many times has this happened, John? Real estate agents, we all have a big ego, right? Everybody loves me, man. They love me, they love me, they
Right.
love me. And then you see that they bought a house from someone else, 6 years later, and you go, man, wait a minute. They loved me. Like,
I
they
thought they
told
loved
me
me.
they were going to send me their grandmother and their uncles,
Right.
and nobody in their world was ever going to move again without me. But I got so busy that, I kind of dropped the ball, and they weren't that interested in my zucchini recipe muffins at Christmas.
Right.
And, all of a sudden, and I think that's an interesting place to go from here, John. So this is how I'm seeing it now. You tell me if you see it this way. Every job is a series of tasks, right? You can put any job description in Claude right now and say, give me a list of every task that a social media manager would have to do, or a transaction coordinator, or a real estate agent. And it'll come up with 120 things that a real estate agent should be doing. It'll also tell you, hey, guess what? There's 30% of it right now that AI can do on an ongoing basis. Then there's what I call the gray area. It might be able to do it right now, but should we have it do it? Like AI voice agents doing cold calling. Yeah, they can do that. Should they? Do we know the real ramifications of that? What happens if an AI voice agent violates fair housing? Who's responsible for that? Is it going to create more problems than it's going to solve? Maybe it doesn't work today, but maybe 3 months from now they've perfected it so it does work. And then there's always this stuff, listen, agents are going to want to be meeting their client at a property, showing them the property, having a conversation, reading them in real time what they love, offering solutions. So what is your process for identifying what tasks can AI be doing and on a regular basis?
Well, the one thing that I've been doing is having conversations with it. And after I spoke to you the first time, I went and paid for Claude.
All right, there you go,
I went
Johnny.
and
Come
paid
on
for
now.
it,
Now
all
you
right?
haven't been going to bed now, I'm telling you, right? It's too crazy, isn't it?
No, it is. It's, they're both Claude and Chat GPT are different. And, I kind of play them against each other still. But one of the things that Claude has really done with me is when I come up with these things, it'll say, well, you said your goal was this. How's that going to help you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's been pushing me back in the lane where I said I wanted to be.
Yep.
And one of the things it does is, like you said, it'll give me that list of things to do, right? And then it also can tell me you should have someone else do these other things. And when I was putting together something as far as us growing the office, it was like, hey, you said you got these other two agents that are helping with that. They need to do this part, and you focus on this other part. So,
Well, and I this is my experience 100% from every podcast I listen to and from just being a human being and being in the business world forever. Every business takes on the personality of its owner. And if you're not fired up about AI, if you're not leading the charge, if you're not out front experimenting, if you're not coming up with use cases for yourself where you go, wow, man, I'm saving an hour a day. Like with this one little thing I have set up. And also being honest about like it's a little bit like, okay, it can feel like a little too much sometimes. So how do you like sort of rein that in?
right.
It's a new world. And I believe the people who are really going to succeed in the future not only transform themselves, but understand how to transform their organizations to introduce this in a way where people get excited by it because it's allowing them to do more of what they love, not threatened by it because they feel like it's one more tech deck they have to learn that isn't going to give them any value.
And
Right? I
and
mean,
with
go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, with that, I'm one of the things that I've been working on as far as on the brokerage side is to be able to have the agents utilize AI in a way that, like you said, saves them time doing the things that they don't want to do. Because different agents love do different things. I have one agent who
Hmm.
just loves to show houses. So we're like, hey, go ahead. Everybody call her and let her show
Right.
the houses. But if you've got where we know video is important and you don't want to be on camera, we're creating avatars for different agents, right? We're not saying that they're the agent. We're letting people know that, hey, this is the AI avatar, but it's the one that's talking. It's creating some of the content for them. And it's making it easier for these agents that don't want to be on camera because now they feel like my Emma is the personality that the world sees.
Hmm. And how are you training those models?
Well, first we start with the image, right? We generate the image. Well, then we'll then take, I can't even remember the very first site that I used for the image, but now, everybody's gotten so much better. I guess Gemini would probably be good. We create the image based off of what the agent wants that AI avatar to look like, feel like.
Hmm.
Then we'll run through different, mock-ups with clothes and everything using Gemini, start creating content based off of the agent. So we're training the AI based off of that agent, the things they like, the things that they believe. and not so much it's just one local realty agency type of thing, coming up with the scripts based off of the market they want to target. Cause I'm really big on agents picking a market and, we can't be all things to all people.
Well, let me. I love giving free stuff away, John, because this is just the way I like to do it. Because the space is moving so quick, and there's so much new information out there. But let me float a freebie by you.
Okay.
Okay, you could create a gem in Gemini, and it does deep research on that particular agent's neighborhood, zip code, whatever. Right? So it's running that deep research in terms of how many houses were sold, what's going on in the neighborhood, new businesses, what the trends are, like all of that. Right? So that gets created. And then I do this exercise where I interview people for about 2 hours where we talk about their values, their vision, their purpose, what they love about what they do, what they don't love about what they do. There's 7 or 8 main pain points for their ideal client profile. You then take that information from the project, you feed it through the source code so it comes out in their voice,
Okay.
in the way that they actually sound, in the way that they actually talk. And there's actually, I'll have to send it to you after the show. There's actually a thing that would create individual blogs for each agent based on their target market, the source code, and then automatically create and post that on a regular basis. So now you're not having an agent with the generic, you're having someone in their neighborhood, in their sweet spot, in their voice, creating stuff that they didn't have to do anything for.
Right.
Now, as an owner of a brokerage, imagine saying to someone, guess what? You're going to get interviewed for 2 hours. We're going to figure out your voice. We're going to do the whole thing for you. You don't do anything. You're going to have your own blog, John Baptiste ad. And that's going to be in your email signature. It's going to be whatever. And the reason that's so important is moving forward with GE, right? Do we talk about that a little bit, about the GEOs? John, what happens 2 years from now when people aren't going to Google anymore?
And that's what I've been talking about.
What happens when they're not even going to Zillow? What happens when they're just going to their Gemini because it told them exactly what restaurant to eat at and knows them better than anybody else and says, hey, man, I'm thinking about buying it. I'm a first-time home buyer, which my Gemini is already going to know that, wanting to buy a house in this market. Who should I use? And if your agents have started now positioning themselves for that agent to find them, life just got a lot easier. You talk about marketing, man, it's set. It's done.
No, and we're hearing that now though. I
Yeah.
mean, I've talked to several different people, and they're like, because I always ask because I've done what you're talking about for our site. I'm working on the agents. They haven't all been as cooperative
Right.
as I
Sure.
need them to be, but I started with myself because I like to lead from the front. I'm gonna test it out and see how it's working. Our phones have been ringing because of it. And when I ask people where do they find us, you still hear the Google thing, but you also hear, well, I asked ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if agents don't really get this, like you said, the agents that go ahead and build that out, I mean, they're going to be
Well,
ones getting all the business.
here's the truth of the matter, John. You know this. I ran a brokerage. Agents don't do anything.
No.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna learn. They do what they do. They're not gonna do anything. And I go back to what will happen. You build it for yourself first. You're getting results. There's 2 or 3 agents who are enthusiastic about trying it. You're not. I always love, it's a program of attraction rather than promotion.
Right.
When they see agents who are busy all the time, they're going, what'd you do? Oh, well, John set me up with this blog thing, and I got an avatar, and I don't know, it's posted on social media. I'm getting all these calls. Then they're going to be coming to you and say, hey, John, can you do this for me too?
Yeah.
Do you find that's the way it works?
That's the route I'm going, right? Especially when it comes to building our location. I mean, I know how they did it at my former brokerage, and I saw the revolving door. Sure, they got a lot of people in,
Yeah.
but they went out just as fast as they came in, right? because there was
And
nothing
that's
there.
demoralizing. I always
It
found that
is.
demoralizing. You know what I mean? Because you always took the wind out of my sails. You know, because I worked at a brokerage in New York that will remain unnamed, but their whole thing was promise the moon. You know, not really giving people a realistic understanding that, you know what, your first year, you're probably going to work 70 hours a week and you might walk out with 25 grand at the end of the year. Like, let's start there,
Right.
right? And let's talk about, but you know what, on year 5, when you're making 150 or 200, like, okay, now you've got a career, but it's going to take a little while,
Right.
you know. John, let me ask you this. What I just started, and it'll be after the show, is I created, you know, I did this because I've been talking to so many people. I finally came up with what the top 1% are doing exactly, right? I've been researching it and talking to what is the exact tech deck of the top 1% in real estate right now. And I developed a survey. It takes us about an hour. It's 100 questions. And it literally maps out, this is where they are, this is where you are, this is where the gap is, and here's the exact tools that they're using if you needed to use to get there. Basically, it's a roadmap to kind of go like, all right, wow, I don't have time to do this, but I think I'd like to do that. I would just like you to invite you at another time to do that. Is that something that you'd like to do?
Oh, man, that sounds interesting. I mean, success leaves clues, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing I love about it is, as you know, you talk about data, I'm getting my own data now. Like, what's really happening right now? Not like the fancy, like, where are people really at? And the more people I talk to, the more information I have about where we are on that AI adoption curve. So before we get off, I'll send a link for that. But what I do want to ask is, if somebody wants to get in touch with you or your office, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they can always follow me directly on social media. TikTok, I've been doing pretty well on. That's John Baptiste TX. Same thing on Instagram. Our website is localrealtymidcities.com. And listen, if they've got questions, our numbers are public. I don't know why people are scared to give their numbers out, but my number, you can just Google it. It's 214-552-5748. You know, so I've always been big on helping other people, because I think that this business, to me, when agents collaborate, they do much better, because it can be lonely being out there the lone wolf,
Absolutely. Well, John, man,
especially
this
if you're
was
not if you're still struggling to make it.
absolutely. So, John, this has been fantastic, man. I've really appreciated the conversation. Hang on for a minute. I just want to say to our listeners, remember that the only purpose of AI right now is to do more of what you love and less of what you don't. If you're interested in having that conversation, reach out to me on the show. We can talk about getting you on. And thanks a lot, John, for spending time with us today. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me, Gus.
If you've got value from today's episode, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you're ready to turn what you love into your superpower and take what you hate off your plate, schedule your free AI discovery call. The link is in the description and pinned comment. I'm Gus Waite. Until next time.